الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the chapter of الصوم or fasting, and inshallah ta'ala it's the sessions is usually like 45 minutes so that we don't keep everyone late inshallah to expect the time inshallah. طيب, we stopped at مفسدات الصوم. مفسدات الصوم, and المفسدات is the plural of mufsid, and al-mufsid is what makes fasad, that means corrupts or breaks or negates. So mufsadat as-sawm, things that would breaks one's fasting. What are the things that breaks fasting? We talked about the pillars of fasting and the conditions of it, whether it's conditions of wujub, obligations, or conditions of sihha, validity, and the sunan, recommended acts, and things that are makruhat, disliked. And then the next point is mufsidat as-sawm. And actually we talked also about al-a'zar, al-mubiha, the permissible things that permits a person to break his fast, since fasting is an obligation. So now mufsidat as-sawm. He mentioned 12 points, and with mufsidat as-sawm, as we would go through them, inshallah ta'ala, you would find some of the things would have differences of opinions. And just for the sake of having things taught to people differently, we'll talk about what some of these points where the contemporary scholars, or even with regards to these differences of opinions, what the fatwa is upon nowadays with regard them, so that we don't find it a strange thing, but we'll still continue to be with what's in the book, inshallah. So, mufsidat as-sawm. And some things are very explicit. We'll mention some ways to, we have children, so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, inshallah. طيب, number one, الردة. The number one mentioned, الردة. الردة is when someone becomes a disbeliever, والعياذ بالله. This is mufsid to everything. Any ibadah, of course, all one's deeds are ruined if he, والعياذ بالله, becomes a disbeliever. So الردة, when someone becomes a murtad, right, that means his fasting is not valid anymore, which is a very obvious one. The second one also, which is a very obvious one, al-maut, death. Someone dies while fasting, right? So that means his fast is not valid, which is an obvious thing also. But if someone died while he has fasting that he needs to make and he didn't do it, then someone else will fast on his behalf, as it's going to be mentioned. Number three, al-azmu ala al-fitr. Al-azm, and we need to pay attention, inshallah ta'ala, because there are very specific way of mentioning things here, very precise. Al-azmu ala al-fitr. Al-azm is the determination, which is the al-azm ala al-fitr, to be determined to break the fast. What is the meaning of al-azm? We know that there are levels or things happens before a person do an action. The last one, like, starts with thinking. A whim, for example, comes into one's mind. Then it develops to thinking about it, then intentions. Then al-azm is the last thing right before the physical action, which is always associated with the physical action. That means if someone has azm, has already determined, decided to break his fast, that means what's left is that he put the food in his mouth. It's always attached to the action. There's no time in between, time-wise or anything else, because breaking the fast doesn't have to be with actually eating. If someone made a decision that he is breaking his fast, it's a decision. He's not thinking, he's not contemplating upon it. No, he decided that he's breaking his fast. That means his fast is broken. But this is the level of al-azm. And to understand also this azm level, or the determination, which is in committing a sin, it becomes sinful, even if a person does not commit a sin. If someone decided to rob a bank, for example, right? That means what? It's not like he's daydreaming. No, he already made the decision and he left the house, right? And then the police arrested him. He needs to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because he made a decision that he's going to do something haram, even though he didn't do it, but it was already made the decision and he start acting, right? So this is al-azm. Different than someone thought of something bad and then he repented to Allah or he turned away from it because of the fear of Allah. He gets reward for that. So al-azmu al-fitr is the decision made that a person breaks his fast, whether it's sinful or not. Doesn't have to be sinful. A person is traveling, for example, so he has the permissibility to break his fast. So he decided to break his fast, and that's it. He made a decision to himself. He doesn't have to say anything. But then he didn't find food. So he says, I'll continue my fasting. No, it's too late. He has to make up that day. You see, it's different than, which is the next point, at-taraddud fihi, which is number 4. At-taraddud is to go back and forth, that a person is in doubt. Should I break my fast? Should I not break my fast? Here, according to this, according to some of the opinions of the ulama, that it breaks the fast because a person has to be in state of fasting. But what many of the people of knowledge are upon and what the fatwa is upon, that that 4th point does not break the fast. So it's why? Because the original status of the person is that he's fasting. So to go from this to the opposite of it, you have to be certain. So you cannot be in doubt. And that's can be very confusing if someone, for example, is, again, it's not necessarily a sinful thing, but he's debating with himself. Should I break my fast or should I not break my fast? I have an excuse. Should I do it or should I not do it? And then he decides at the end, no, I'm not going to break my fast. That's fine. But if he's exactly like back and forth, like it's a dangerous one, he should cut that off quickly. But al-azm is for sure to make a decision, but then he was prevented, he was not able to. That's different. So number 4, even though the actions that has been established with from again many of the people of knowledge that it does not break the fast. But as you see, there's difference of opinion with a taraddud. Taraddud is not thinking, is not having whims or whispers. No, this is basically one's action. So a person should not confuse that with whispers of shaitan or thinking about the matter. So this is number 4, at-taraddud fi. And we said we're not going to act upon that one. Number 5, al-qay'u amdan. Al-qay' amdan. Al-qay' is throwing up, vomiting. Amdan, intentionally. So not any qay', not any vomiting. If someone is vomited, overpowered, then it just happened, it doesn't break the fast. But if he made himself vomit, for whether it's, again, for a sinful reason, or he needs to, he ate some, or his stomach is so upset, and he needs to, vomit. So he put his finger in his mouth, or he smells something, whatever there is. So intentionally he vomits. So it can be a valid reason for him, and not sinful, but it breaks the fast. So as long as it's intentional, it breaks the fast. Al-qay'u amdan. So that means if it's not amdan, if it's not intentional, it doesn't break the fast. Clear? Number 6. So number 4 we said is you put a line under it because again the action is different. And number 6 also. الاحتقان من الدبر والإبر المغذية. Can you read the translation for that number 6 for me?
Take of food from the anal.
Okay, the intake of food or medicine from the anal and nutritional intravenous enema. So it's basically fasting is about what? Is about abstaining from eating and drinking and the other things that breaks the fast. So anything that a person would intake, not in the normal way of eating and drinking, but it's food and nutrition that breaks the fast. So if someone has glucose in his veins, that breaks the fast because it's nutrition. Different than medicine. Medicine doesn't break the fast if it's in the different passages of the body. So to get this clear, anything, as it will also mention, anything that goes into the normal passage of food, even if it's not for nutrition, it breaks the fast. If someone take medicine through his mouth, right, it's not food, but it's medicine, it breaks the fast. If it goes through the normal passage of food and drink. But if he takes the same medicine as an injection in his arm, for example, on his leg, it's the same medicine, but it's as an injection. It doesn't break the fast, unless the injection is nutritional, gives the body sufficiency in, or it doesn't even give sufficiency, but it's food in the comes into the categories of food and drink, gives one's vitamins, for example, glucose, things of that nature. So it doesn't matter where then it's injected, whether it's from different passages that can goes into the body. That's why these specific things are mentioned. Whether it's from the inner or from the body, injections or hanging some enema is mentioned, other things that the people in this field would understand. Clear? This point is clear? He mentions this as it breaks the fast. So what breaks the fast here is not medicine, it's al-mughadhiya. Al-mughadhiya, that means is nutritional. Anything nutritional that is going in a different way from the passage of the normal way of food. Because if it's through the passage of food, it's not going to be mentioned. It's a very obvious one. Of course, it breaks the fast. Clear? Number 7, خروج دم الحيض أو النفاس. The khuruj, the coming out of the blood of menses and the after birth bleeding. And we have to also be very specific. What breaks the fast is the coming out of the blood. That breaks the fast. So the coming out of the blood, that breaks the fast, if it's, of course, during the day of the blood of menses or after birth bleeding. Once it comes out, that means during the day, that means this day doesn't count. And of course, the days to come also is not going to count because there's still, the blood is there. So this is number 7. Number 8, it's also another, actually number 8 is like going to be like number 4. He says, بلع النخامة إذا وصلت إلى الفم. النخامة is, what's النخامة in number 8? I don't know how to pronounce it, that's why. Huh? Phlegm, the phlegm. So it's the heavy spit, right? That it's comes from the bottom of the throat or so. So is it called the belgham? So this nukhama, if it comes out to the lips or to the mouth, it's detached, it's separated from the person. And he, again, there's no shyness in the religion, and that person would swallow it. Right? He says it breaks the fast. And this is there's a valid opinion like this. And the ulama, they talk about this. Why? Because it's already came out. So that means it's detached from him. Imagine someone would take something like that from the outside and he swallow it. Of course, it breaks the fast. But the other opinion that it doesn't, because it's part of one's body, like the saliva and things like this. Saliva, of course, no doubt about it that it doesn't break the fast, or even spit and things like this. But this is a very specific thing that it's completely detached or separated from the person, and he would swallow it or will to swallow it again. But mucus, things like that from the nose, it doesn't break the fast. If a person, it happened that it swallowed or something like that, it doesn't break the fast. And even that one, also, as far as the actions are concerned, it doesn't. But this is mentioned here as we see some of the differences of opinion here. Is it clear how specifically this is? Not just the split, not the saliva, nothing. It's just that thick thing then comes out, and then a person would swallow it. Number 9 also has differences of opinions. Al-hijama. Al-hijama, حاجما كان أو محجوما. The hijama, the cupping with blood, of course. So this, does it break the fast or not? There is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, أفطر الحاجم والمحجوم. The one that makes hijama and the one that makes the hijama for someone, both, they broke their fast. But there is evidences where the Prophet ﷺ made hijama when he was fasting. And he continued fasting. So that's why the majority, جمهور العلماء, that al-hijama does not break the fast. Unless a person becomes weak and things like this, then he has to break the fast. That's something else. And in Madhab Imam Ahmad, al-hijama breaks the fast. So it's better to avoid it during the day, especially in Ramadan, unless a person is in need of it. But it's better to avoid it, to be away from the differences of opinion. But the established fatwa of the ulama that it doesn't break the fast. That's al-hijama. Clear? Number 10 also needs to pay attention to what is mentioned here. إنزال المني بتكرار النظر. المني is the semen. If the semen comes out without one's intentional means to get it out, it doesn't break the fast. Like when in someone's sleep, for example, it doesn't break the fast. Even during the day of Ramadan, yes. So what breaks the fast is that if it comes out by one's actions. He did something, that person did something for that to come out, to be released. Whether it's here mentioned tikran, whether it's continuous looking, and as a result of that, there was a release that breaks the fast. So he did an action, he did something. Doesn't have to be sinful, right? So if something like that happened, then that breaks the fast. Or as it's the next one, خروج المني أو المذي, which is another very critical point here. Al-Maniyya is where the human being is created from, right? Al-Madhi is the transparent one that comes before that. Al-Madhi breaks the wudu. The Madhi breaks the wudu, but does not require ghusl, does not require shower or ghusl. Al-Mani is what requires the ghusl. Clear? Al-Madhi is the transparent one that comes before that. That does not require ghusl if it's the only thing that get released. And if it comes out while a person is fasting, the madhi, it doesn't break the fasting. Unless the madhi, which is the pre one, comes out or released by one's actions. And he mentioned here the things that we mentioned yesterday. Kissing, touching, whatever. So if it comes out, a person is overpowered, he thought of something, came out like this, it does not break the fast. But, did something physically that caused that to come, according to the madhab and according to here, that it breaks the fast. Because it's against the concept of fasting, that a person abstains from eating and drinking and his desire. So he did something to fulfill his desire, but then that was released as a result of that. You see, even the madhi. So the madhi, if it comes out, if it's released without any action from the person, it doesn't break the fast. Al-mani, if it comes out without one's action whatsoever, like in sleep, for example, it doesn't break the fast. But if it comes as a result of one's action, looking, touching, and so on, then it breaks the fast. Is it clear? Even though the madhi one, there's difference of opinion, even in that case, does it break the fast or not? But to stay away from it, of course, or the things that would lead to this, so that the person protects his fasting. Clear? Number 12.
What depends specifically verse many?
No. Number 10 is about mani, yeah, but by continuous looking. Right. With the madhi, if it comes out by continuous looking, it doesn't break the fast. Al-madhi, it has to be with something physical happened. Al-madhi comes out, which is the pre one, then it breaks the fast. Right. Al-mani without one's action, it doesn't break the fast, like during sleep. No. Please. كل ما وصل إلى الجوف أو الحلق أو الدماغ من مائع وغيره. Anything that goes into the jawf, the inside of the person, or the throat, or the head, from whether it's liquid or something else. So, and this is also a debatable one. So anything that reaches the stomach, for example, right? It doesn't have to be from the normal passage. But that again, to mention that with number six, if it's nutritional. If it's not nutritional, then it doesn't break the fast, according to the correct opinion. Allah A'lam. Clear? Which is number 12. Yes, the inhaler is something also that the ulama they discussed. If it's something that does not go to the passage of food, does not have any particles that goes inside of the stomach, then it doesn't break the fast. But if something goes to the stomach, that breaks. No. Okay, it's clear. But now the subject of al-jima' is mentioned. We talked about al-mani, the semen and the madhi, if it is released by these things that mentioned. But now if there is al-jima', al-jima' is the intimate relationship, the physical union. Does that make sense? طيب, he says here, من جامع في نهار رمضان. Whoever has this relations with his wife during the day of Ramadan, whether it's in a permissible way or a non-permissible way. In matters of fiqh, the concern here, not necessarily that it's haram or halal. We're talking about the rulings here. We're talking about breaking the fast. If someone does it halal or haram, this is something else. But if it's even with one's wife, it can be halal, can be haram, other than the day of Ramadan. That's why he says في قبل أو دبر, from the front or from the back. Of course, it's the other way is haram. But if it happened like this, so some people might think it's only in the normal way. No, if it happened in the forbidden way, right? And this is also called jima'. It's also called jima', and it breaks the fast. Please understand what is meant here. فعليه القضاء والكفار. Anything else before there's qada, a person has to make up the day of fasting. For al-jima' or the relations, then he has to make up the day, and there is a kafara, an expiation for the person to fulfill here. Al-kafara, he said, إذا كان متعمدا, if the person was intentionally doing this. فإن كان ناسيا, if he did it forgetfully, he forgot that today is Ramadan. فصومه صحيح, his fasting is valid. ولا قضاء عليه ولا كفارة. No making up the day, no kafara, because he did it forgetfully. And Allah knows best. And رفع عن أمتي الخطأ والنسيان. As the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not hold accountable the ummah in something by mistake or forgetfulness. Okay? So this is during the day, of course, in Ramadan. But then there's some masail here mentioned. We didn't talk yet about the kafara. He said, إذا أكرهت المرأة على الجماع. If the woman is forced في نهار رمضان. This one case. If she's forced. or كانت جاهلة, or she was ignorant about the rulings, doesn't know. أو ناسية, or she forgot, like the case of forgetting. فصومها صحيح. Her fasting is sound. Her fasting is sound, is correct. If she was forced, or she was ignorant about the ruling, or she was forgetful, her fasting is valid, is correct. وإن كانت مكرهة فعليها القضاء فقط. If she was forced, she only has to make up the day. That's it. If she was forced. Clear? Is it confusing? We have to write it down, otherwise it's become confusing. Or it's in the book. وإن كانت مكرهة فعليها القضاء فقط. If she was forced, then she has to make up the day only, no كفارة. وإن طاوعته عامدة, if she obeyed him, or she followed with him intentionally, like her husband, for example, then al-qada wal-kafara both are obligatory upon her. So if she did it willingly, then she has to make up the day, and the kafara, the expiation, also is upon her. So if both did it forgetfully, then their fasting is valid, and there's no making up the day, and there's no kafara. And the same thing if both of them did not know the ruling of it. There's no kafara on them. But if she was forced, then she only to make up the day, and there's no qada for her. If she's willingly did that, then both the qada and the kafara. Clear? What is the kafara then? Kafara is expiation. It's an order. عتق رقبة, to free a slave. فإن لم يجد, if he doesn't find a slave to free, then fasting 2 consecutive months. فصيام شهرين متتابعين. 2 months consecutively without breaking the fast in any day in between. And if a person fasts 2 months, 2 lunar months, of course, whether he sees the moon or if he doesn't, then 60 days. So, so it's 2 months, one after the other. And if he breaks his fast the last day, then he has to repeat the 2 months again. It has to be consecutive 2 months without breaking the fast in between, unless a person, for example, he falls sick. So if he's sick, then he breaks his fast because of the sickness, and he continued the 60 days. But he has to make up, of course, these days so that it's continuously to be 60 days. It doesn't break the continuity of it. Or if someone traveled, anything that would be an excuse to break the fast would be applied for the 2 months, but without playing tricks, without, say, intentionally going to travel so that he can break his fast. So 2 consecutive months. This is an order. فإن لم يستطع, if he's not able to fast 2 consecutive months, then فإطعام 60 مسكينا, then to feed 60 poor persons. As the hadith of the man that came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he told him that he's poor, he doesn't have any means to free a slave, he does not have the ability to fast, and he does not have any food to feed the poor. The Prophet ﷺ asked, and the people gave him a container or a big plate of dates, and he said, give it to the poor people. He said, I don't know any poorer in Medina, poorer than me. So the Prophet ﷺ said, go feed it to your family. And he smiled, alayhi salatu wasalam. So this man ended up going back with the food to himself. So, and this is the ease of the matter. And that's why if he doesn't find even means to feed 60 people, then there's nothing upon it. فإن لم يجد سقطت عنه, no kafara for that person in this case. Okay. This is in the case of al-jima'. Jima' is the full relations. If the person, there was relations but not a full one, without insertion or anything like that, then the day has to be made up, but there's no kafara. The kafara is only if it's full. Then, of course, in any case, at-tawbah ila Allah, to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, should we repeat anything? Yes. The 60 days for both male and female, if she's willing and so on. Yes, 60 days. Of course, there's more masail that comes up. This is for one day. So if that happened in 2 days, 60 days, 60 days. If it happened more than one time in the same day, it's only 60 days per day. Then after that, he says, يُسَنُّ قَضَاءُ رَمَضَانَ فَوْرًا مُتَتَابِعًا. يُسَنُّ, it's recommended to make up the days of Ramadan that a person missed immediately after Ramadan. The day of Eid al-Fitr is haram to fast, which is the first day of Shawwal. After that, then it's best to immediately make up the days. It's recommended. Why? This is always the case when someone has an obligation upon him. It's best that he does it right away. متتابعا, one after the other. It doesn't have to be, but it's recommended. فإن أخره إلى ما بعد رمضان آخر, if he delays it till the next Ramadan comes in. Person has 2 days that he broke his fast in Ramadan, and he did not fast them till the next Ramadan came without a udhr, without a valid excuse. Then what that person should do, he has to still make up the days, and وإطعام مسكين عن كل يوم, and to feed a poor person for every day, because the next Ramadan came when he didn't make up the fast. Clear? So this is a specific mas'ala. It's recommended to make up the days right away after Ramadan and one after the other. and he has all the way to the next Ramadan. If the next Ramadan comes and there was no valid excuse, if there was a valid excuse, there's no harm just to make up the days. If there was no valid excuse, then he has to feed a poor person with every day and still have to make up the days. Okay. طيب, the last point here before what's recommended days of fasting. من مات عليه صوم نذر أو حج نذر وحج نذر قضى عنه وليه. Whoever dies and he has fasting of nadhr, vow, he made a vow against himself to fast, or hajj that he made as a vow, his wali, his guardian, would make up the fasting or the hajj on his behalf. If it's normal fasting, also as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Sama anhu waliyu." If he had some days of fasting that he didn't make up these days of fast and he died before doing it, according to here, he doesn't. No one has to fast on him, but they can feed the poor. But some said it's also to fast. So some said only the vow, and some said also the fasting of Ramadan to fast on his behalf. But those who said that you don't fast on his behalf if he missed days of Ramadan, they say to pay to feed the poor for every day. Okay. The next point, we'll list them only. We have a list of what's recommended from fasting, is what's recommended and what's disliked and what's haram as far as days of fasting other than the obligation. So this is, now we're done with the rulings of fasting and the ahkam, but now there's optional fasting. And there are days where it's makruh to fast, and there are days that are haram to fast. And each one has an evidence, of course, but we'll just list them and without going through the evidences of it. It says يستحب صيام الأيام التالية. It's recommended to fast these days. يوم عرفة, the day of Arafah, which is the 9th of the Hijjah, لغير الحج, for other than the Hajj. The one that making Hajj, it is not for him to fast unless he needs to fast in the days of Hajj. So it's only recommended for those who are not making Hajj, which is the 9th of the Hijjah, and the reward of it, of course, as we know, great rewards from Allah. Fasting the 9th and the 10th, or the 10th and the 11th of the Muharram, the month of Al-Muharram, which is Ashura, the 10th of Al-Muharram, and the 9th and the 10th because the Prophet ﷺ said, إن عشت إلى قابل لأصومن التاسع. If I live for the next year, I would fast the 9th to be different than the Jews. So 9th and 10th, or the 10th and the 11th. If someone did not fast the 9th and he fasted the 10th, then fast the 11th. And some said the 3 days, 9, 10, 11. The third one, the 6 days of Shawwal. 6 days of Shawwal, another fast Ramadan, and 6 days of Shawwal as if he fasted the entire year. And if a person has obligatory fasting, first he should do that first and then the 6 days of Shawwal. Unless the obligatory fasting would fill the entire month, then it's okay to fast the 6 days of Shawwal and then make up the obligatory days afterwards. النصف الأول من شهر شعبان, the first half of Sha'ban, it's recommended since the Prophet ﷺ used to fast all of Sha'ban and some narrations most of Sha'ban. But he mentioned the first half only because some said the second half it's not recommended to fast, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ إذا انتصف شعبان فلا تصوموا, but it refers to those who would specifically fast in the second half of Sha'ban. Since the other hadith says the Prophet ﷺ used to fast the entire Sha'ban or most of it, that means some people might only start fasting in the second half of Sha'ban. No, we tell them not to do that. But if they fasted in the beginning of Sha'ban, then they can continue to fast as long as they leave the last day or two before Ramadan without fasting. Okay. العشر الأول من شهر ذي الحجة, the first 10 days of the Hijjah, it's recommended to fast, as recommended to do any of the good deeds. It's multiplied in the best days to do good deeds. شهر المحرم, the month of Al-Muharram, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said the best of fasting after Ramadan is شهر الله المحرم. The lunar days of every month, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. These are the lunar days, 13th, 14th, and 15th. Mondays and Thursdays, صوم يوم وإفطار يوم, fasting one day breaking the fast the next day. So fasting every other day, the Siyam of Dawood. That's the best of fasting. And the last one, الصيام للأعزب الذي لم يقدر على الزواج. Fasting for the Al-A'zab is the one that is a bachelor, someone that is not married, if he's not able to get married and he's not able to, protect himself from what's haram. So because the Prophet ﷺ said, يا معشر الشباب من استطاع منكم الباءة فليتزوج. Or young people, whoever has the means to get married, then let him get married. And if he's not able to, he has only one choice. فعليه بالصوم فإنه له وجاء. Then let him fast as much as he can every day, because this will protect him. So if someone says, is there anything else other than fasting? It's very difficult. He's young, he's not married, and he's not able to protect himself from the haram. No, there's no other way. You seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and start fasting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for you. But there's no other way. No. We'll stop here, inshallah. طيب, the hadith, and then if there's any questions. Hadith number 50, inshallah. It's a hadith that requires a lecture. And we heard it many times before, inshallah, but it's very important to even memorize this hadith, even though it's quite some few sentences. It says في الصحيح. You don't have to memorize في الصحيح. It was taken from the book like that. So it say عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال احرص على ما ينفعك. احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله ولا تعجزن. واستعن بالله ولا تعجزن. وإن أصابك شيء فلا تقل لو أني فعلت كذا لكان كذا وكذا، ولكن قل قدر الله وما شاء فعل. فإن لو تفتح عمل الشيطان. So the hadith is احرص على ما ينفعك. احرص, be diligent, take care of what is benefiting for you. على ما ينفعك. ينفعك is what's benefiting for you. احرص. الحرص is to have diligency, to eager, to take care, to make sure that you do what is benefiting for yourself. So this حرص should be there. Do what is benefiting for yourself. واستعن بالله ولا تعجزن. And some of the issue تعجز. Seek help from Allah and don't have عجز. لا تعجز ولا تعجزن. That means do not have inability. Do not give up. Do not be unable when you have the means. Do not, say, do not quit, basically. استعن بالله. Seek help from Allah and don't have inability. That means keep going. وإن أصابك شيء, and if something afflicted you, anything afflicted you, أصابك. And أصابك here in the context, that means something that is not pleasant, something that you don't like. Something bad afflicted you. فلا تقل, do not say, لو أني, if, لو is if. لو أني, if I فعلت, if I did كذا. كذا is if I did such and such. كذا is not anything. It's just if I did such and such, it's like such and such. كذا. لو أني فعلت كذا لكان, it would have been كذا وكذا. If I have done this, it would have been such and such. So there's nothing mentioned here. So كذا لكان كذا وكذا. ولكن قل, but rather say قدر الله ما شاء فعل. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed the matter, and whatever he willed subhanahu wa ta'ala, he did. This is the qadar of Allah. فإن لو, because indeed لو, the word لو, if, opens, تفتح, opens, عمل الشيطان, the actions of shaitan. You open a gate of the actions of shaitan upon you when you say if, after it's already happened. This hadith, as ulama, they say this is such an important hadith in the way to conduct yourself in this life. This is the methodology to be upon in your entire life in any matter in one's life, whether it's religious, worldly matter, in anything. The first thing is احرص على ما ينفعك. Be eager to do what is benefiting for yourself. And the more the person gain knowledge, the more the person he would know what's benefiting for himself. Matters of deen, very obvious. Matters of dunya, think, should I study this or not? Should I work this place or that place? Be upon what is benefiting for you. See first what is best for your religion. Make istikhara as the people of expertise in it. They have religion and they have the expertise in the matter that you're seeking. So investigate, look into the matter very carefully. What's best for you in matters of deen? Deen comes first, and then the dunya is there. So احرص على ما ينفعك. Now you realize that this is benefiting for you. واستعن بالله ولا تعجز. Then seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not be weak. Do not say, I'm not able to, that's difficult for me. If you seek help from Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for you. Take the first step and the second step. If it's in your capacity, then go for it. Don't be overwhelmed. It's too difficult, it's too long, whatever. And you can go on with all kinds of examples. This is actually a life transformation for a person if he applies this in his life. Name it anything. You want to memorize Quran? If is it benefiting for you? For sure. Right? So what do? Seek help from Allah and don't say I'm not able to. Don't say I'm weak. Don't say it's difficult for me. I do not know how to read Quran. Seek help from Allah. And every day learn one letter. Every day there's put an effort every day. Don't give up after 1 month. Don't give up after 1 year. Keep on going. Keep on seeking help from Allah. But seeking help, ولا تعجز. Do not be in having inability. Matters of dunya even. Right? Everything, it works by the will of Allah. But with seeking help from Allah, ولا تعجز. And especially with the first one is mentioned, احرص على ما ينفعك. And then after you took all these means, if something that you don't like happened after you did this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for you, then never say, if I have done this differently, it would have been something else. Never say that. And if it comes inside of you and you didn't say it physically out loud, push that away from you. Because that's wrong. It was never meant to be anything other than what already happened. ما أصابك لم يكن ليخطئك, as the Prophet ﷺ said. وما أخطأك لم يكن ليصيبك. What afflicted you was never meant to miss you. And what missed you was never meant to afflict you. Once it happened, you already know what's in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. So if the entire world got together to have done something differently to you of what already happened, they were not having the ability to do it because it already happened and become in place. We don't know that till it happens because we don't know the unseen. But should we rely on, okay, well, this is what happened, قدر الله ما شاء فعل, without making eager that you do what's benefiting, seeking help from Allah. This is how the steps of things. And then you say, لو أني فعلت كذا لكان كذا وكذا. But rather say, قدر الله ما شاء فعل. This is the qadr of Allah, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed happens. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, فإن لو تفتح عمل الشيطان. لو opens the gates of shaitan, makes the person sad, makes the person give up on the mercy of Allah, makes the person think bad about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, compromise the deen, whatever there is. All kinds of evil things as a result of if. So the if statement, we have to be careful with the if statement. But can a person blame himself of anything that happens? MashaAllah. Blaming himself in a healthy way. My sins, so I seek forgiveness from Allah. I need to do things more diligently. I need to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a way, and things like this. So that's why it's important. Hadith, inshallah, we should always memorize it, inshallah.